Good morning, LinkedIn friends, HubSpot Nation. Welcome to another edition of Let's Unbox HubSpot. Today we are unboxing the AI-powered CPQ with Ethan and Bill. How you fellas doing today?
Doing well, man. I'm excited to finally be in this new house that I moved into. So that's the highlight of my week, I think.
That is very exciting, and we won't be. Luckily, we won't. We'll leave Ethan to the unboxing inside the house, and
That's
today we'll
true.
be unboxing inside of HubSpot. How you doing, Bill?
I'm excellent, thank you. Yeah, I'm looking forward to unpacking something almost as exciting for me as a new house in the new HubSpot CPQ solution. So,
Then we'll all agree that that is the end of the unboxing puns as it relates to Ethan's moving situation.
oh, sorry.
Uh, but yeah, really exciting. A couple weeks ago at Inbound, huge announcement about CPQ. And that's what we're going to dive into today. But if you've never been on an unboxing before with me as it relates to HubSpot, I do my best to mimic real life HubSpot usage where somebody, in this case, maybe somebody's tried quoting before in HubSpot. They didn't enjoy it and they haven't looked at it in a while. So there's some stuff that might be set up here and there. And now they see the CPQ. What's life like for them as they click in and go and try and find all the tools in a portal that hasn't been prepped? You haven't spent weeks of effort strategizing, and you might not even know what CPQ is, right? So we're going to try and take it from that perspective today in my demo portal. So as I pull it up, I would love, Ethan, if you could just start with the definition of CPQ.
Sure, man. CPQ stands for configure price quote, but it's really just like a quoting system. That's what it means. It's quoting software. And oftentimes when I talk about CPQ, I tell people where CPQ came from because it's an important piece of context to understand modern CPQs. So CPQ, emerged like 20 years ago. They're an old category of software that came out of manufacturing and telecommunications companies. And for those people, right, you like creating a quote is almost impossible manually, right? Because it's like, well, I've got this component and it only works with this component. I can only deliver it on this platform in this geography, right? All this different stuff. So, there's like these big systems that emerged that were built by Oracle and SAP and all these others to kind of enable folks to actually create these quotes. But then over time, a lot of people outside of telecommunications and manufacturing were like, well, hey, quoting is hard for me too, right? I also want a CPQ, and that's why you had other companies that came about, like SteelBrick, which got bought by Salesforce, and DealHub, right, who are kind of like bringing CPQ to everybody. And then now you even have like a newer kind of generation of CPQs, like folks like RevOps and who else am I thinking about? Well, just newer CPQs, right? Who are Chargebee has a CPQ now, right? But it's basically like folks who are kind of further trying to extend, how many people can use a CPQ, make them even easier to use, and then also connect them into like billing and payments that have a more of a revenue lifecycle management solution that they're making available to folks. So anyway, that's like a very long-winded way of saying, right? Like it's quoting software, but it's quoting software that has like a rich history and has been growing over time in terms of what people expect it to do.
Yes, indeed. And for those that may have seen in the background, I just came in and asked, Bree's assistant to tell me about the new CPQ. And
oh, hey, got it right. That's awesome.
I'll say it did a very good job. So I imagine if others in your company, like if you're the one watching this, you want to help other people start to understand this, please start using Breeze Assistant because beyond this, it source cites all the sources, and we see all these the different knowledge base articles and things like that. So very easy to enable your team at the level of like, what is it? Like, what are we trying to do here? Bill, as somebody who's been implementing CPQ, Why does this tend to be the most complex part of any tech stack?
Yeah, I think that one of the main reasons why it's traditionally been such a complicated component is that a lot of other business processes are fairly prescriptive in the way that you manage them, right? So if you're even if you're doing manufacturing, you kind of have a sales order, you've got a production order, you might have some pick, pack, and ship going on, different things that are sort of like, this is how we do it. Even deal management inside of a CRM, there are sort of some prescribed best practices. That's also true for CPQ, but the difference is that there is a difference between products, and so everybody does kind of have to do it a little bit different. And so when you have that, it becomes complexity. So I would say that that's probably the reason why this has traditionally been the most complicated, is because you're combining something unique with something that you're trying to systemize.
Yeah. And I think, like, in my experience, in the few times I had to do it internally before going external, it's often like CPQ or trying to digitize a process that is paper-based or verbal-based, and where you have ultimate flexibility as a sales team or a quoting team to just handle, like, do configuration on the spot, because you've learned over the years, this is going to work, this isn't going to work. I know exactly who I need to talk to now. I know I'm just going to send a message to the boss with these specific variables in my message, and then I'm going to get maybe a call back to talk through those variables, and then agree on what the discount should be because of this, who the customer is and the situation at that moment, and how close are we to a deal here? Do we need to sweeten the pot? Like, it is the most the space where you need to flex the most when we're trying to close deals, but you need all of this context about the business and the products and the customer, that when we try to digitize that with rules and trying to help people, enable people, while also creating a little control around the system, hopefully it's not hard to understand why this can be very, very complex. Now, as you guys thought about that, Ethan, was there any, like, specific maybe principles or avenues you decided to go down to make sure? Because in my history, those are the kinds of things that stop CPQ projects like dead in their tracks, right? People can't even think about bringing something like that into a system. Like, just let me do it via email. Like, let's not even try. I can't even imagine systematizing this.
Well, I mean, maybe I'm a bad salesperson, but I think the first thing I would say is, if you're like, I don't want to do this, I don't want a CPQ, then I would say, no problem. Definitely don't buy ours. And, like, you might just not be at a place where you need one yet, which is totally fine. I think a lot of the people I talk to are reaching a point where that's just, like, not tenable. And I think, by the way, that is totally tenable for, like, a smaller team or even a larger team that just has, like, a pretty simple offering. That's totally fine. And the people I talk to are the folks who are like, hey, look, we've got like 5 salespeople on the team. We're trying to add more people, right? So, like, it's not like the 5 salespeople are bad actors doing bad things, but to your point, Chris, like, everybody kind of knows the like they know how much we can discount. They're aware of how much, some of the services that we offer cost. And so, they know to check with Bill to see if we have enough service, hours available to do that, right? Like, there's so much tribal knowledge, and that just doesn't work when you're adding 2 salespeople to the team a week, right? And so that's why they're trying to build more systems around it. And I think, in terms of, like, principles of how we approach it, I think we're trying to build CPQ in the way that, like, HubSpot builds stuff, right? And so there's, like, a couple principles for that. So the first one, right, is that I saw a post on LinkedIn yesterday, and I sent it to my team, where somebody was comparing HubSpot CRM to other CRMs like Salesforce, and they were like, one of the key differences here is that, like, HubSpot CRM is way easier to use, and it's way easier to set up, right? And it has a little lower total cost of ownership, but that's actually secondary to the 2 other things, right? You're not buying it because it's cheaper. You're buying it because of these things. Also, by the way, it's cheaper, right? And so those two principles of having it be like, hey, this thing is easier to use and it's easier to set up, those are also important principles for the CPQ, because that's just HubSpot like product philosophy, right? I think another thing is that we're actually, even though we're a big company, we're kind of coming to the CPQ game, as like a new entrant, I would say, right? So we don't have a lot of the like old CPQ baggage around. And so we feel more, similar to some of the newer CPQ offerings that aren't as focused on like, guardrails and control being the primary value. We still want to build those things. We still have features that, support that. And we're going to keep building features that support that. But the kind of value proposition that we really want to anchor around as a product team to build for is actually helping you close faster. Right. So we're also going to build a lot of features that other CPQs don't have. I think they're also going to build them, but we might even get there first on some of them that actually help the deal close literally faster. Right. So some of those things are AI and some of them aren't. Right. So like, for example, the reason we built our closing agent, which is an agent that sits on top of the quote and answers questions, is like, do you really need, Bill Barlas, the account executive, to provide a PDF copy of a SOC 2 report or explain a warranty policy or explain the differences in pricing if you go from annual to monthly billing, right? It's like, no, you don't. But in a lot of sales systems, right, like you would email, Chris Carolyn, the account executive, or the SDR or the BDR, right, who then books a meeting with Bill, who then answers that question, or you do it via email, but Bill's on vacation. Now Bill's stressed because, his kids are yelling at him and he's trying to answer a question from the pool. This sucks, right? So not only are we going to have those kind of conventional CPQ features that are like supporting that kind of control and guardrails, but we also want to build a whole host of features that are helping the deal actually close faster. And so, that's another principle for us, is like helping the deal close faster is the preeminent goal of the CPQ. And I would rather build features that do that for everybody than like a specific feature that only applies to a certain number of people and, drives better control for those people. I'd rather just work with people like, you or Bill to create more custom solutions that sit on top of the CPQ for those scenarios. Because again, like I have to build something that is going to be used by tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people. And I feel that is a better ultimate goal for our community, right?
Yeah.
So,
and I know Bill would agree. And like, since you joined the ecosystem over the past, couple of years, Bill, I'd love for you to speak to how you've seen that like come to fruition, and that being this difference of the goal of closing business faster, which most people at this point, hopefully they know that happens when you make things easy for the customers, like externally and internally. Meanwhile, a lot of CPQs, like most back office systems, are not focused on the customer experience. They get implemented because we need to manage margin. We need to manage, profitability, inventory control, making sure we're not promising products that we can't build or offer. And then they put it in the hand of the sales team, and it's like, oh, I have all these steps now. Of course, I'm just going to go back to email. Like, can you just make it so I can export everything and then bring it outside of the system anyways? Like, how have you seen, or how has HubSpot like helped you kind of see that side as you have started doing these kinds of projects with HubSpot?
Yeah, absolutely, Chris. So I think that having operational guardrails are important still. I like to think about things like approvals as really less onerous and more almost as like protection for the people that are doing the work, right? So it sort of enables you to do your job more quickly. I think what Ethan said, there's really nothing new under the sun. So I think the operational promises that we're sort of making right now are not really all that different from what we've been saying about CPQ the whole time. It's increased quote velocity. It's easier to send a quote. There's some statistics from other CPQ solutions that are hanging out there. The one about 86% of deals are stalled because of slow quoting, things like that, right? I think that the primary difference is that when you start to apply the HubSpot way of doing things, that's when you really start to actually see those promises start to come true. So, it's becoming easy to actually use the solutions and tools, from a sales perspective. that's where the big wins have happened. So I think the strategy really, in a lot of ways, hasn't changed. It's that we're, with AI, with HubSpot's user interface, user experience, with having enough customers that you can really go in and start to understand how this should work for so many different use cases. That's where I think what's about to happen now is that the goals are about to actually start coming true. That's the big win. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I think like the key is that software companies always have like the faster, bigger, stronger like goals. But then when the customers ask for it, in the case of CPQ, at least in my experience, it's for the operational things because they understand they can't scale with the process of just the salesperson doing everything from the hip, because when a new person comes in, it takes 6 months to train that person because they just have to watch the other person work. Right. And some of my favorite moments have been, a senior salesperson saying, man, this guy is really, really picking this up fast after we just implemented the CPQ integration. It's like maybe that's why they're picking it up. And really like helping customers and users understand that's why they want to put this in, even if they start from a perspective of feeling like they need to control and understand these back office variables. Because when you start from that perspective, and it can be very easy as an implementer, as a partner, to kind of serve that, because we want to serve the use case that they're asking for.
Mm-hmm.
But when you get so focused on the back office need, that's, in my opinion, what gets in the way of the customer experience and the teams actually using the system, because you'll get to the end of the project and the managers and executives will appreciate the reports. But the customers won't appreciate all of the things they got to click on and things they've got to scroll through in order to make those reports possible. Is that fair?
Yes, it is. Hey, Christopher.
Yep.
Time to touch the metal here. Let's go.
All right. So I'm going to click on quotes here.
Touch the metal. I like that.
Yeah, let's go.
And we'll close Breeze Assistant for now. So just to confirm, as long as I'm seeing this beta tag, Ethan, I'm in the new quotes experience. Is that correct?
Probably. The big thing to look for also is like, see how at the top it says all quotes analyze templates? That's like another great indicator.
Okay.
Also, when you make a quote and you get launched into the full page editor, that's like the new experience. If you're on the legacy system, right, you'll just jump back into that old kind of wizard experience that we have. So, and just so folks know, like the actual way that you get to the new experience, right, is you need to assign yourself a Commerce Hub seat. Well, how do I get a Commerce Hub seat? You could buy one, or you can just start a trial, and then you can assign yourself unlimited Commerce Hub seats. And anybody who has a Commerce seat will have the new quoting experience. Anybody who doesn't have a Commerce Hub seat but has access to the old quoting solution will be using the old one. So that's the difference, right? I'm open to a better way of doing it, but that was the kind of most elegant way we could think to do it.
Yeah.
Yep.
I agree with it. It was the right approach. So, okay, click the create quote button. All right, round of applause from the audience here, guys. Single window, no more wizard. So choose a deal and get started.
You'd be surprised how many people love the deal. Or sorry, not the deal, the wizard. Which I think is fair, actually. I think a lot of people like a more segmented experience where you can focus on one thing at a time. It just creates other kind of UX concerns that are difficult. And I think there's probably a way that we can provide that experience of like focused editing or something like that in a more full page experience.
Absolutely.
So, anywho.
And this is going to be fun because I haven't, like, obviously these Lord of the Rings deals. I don't know who did them, but maybe I just got a handoff from somebody, or these deals are being automatically generated because our qualification process on the website is so good, and I've got to come in. So that's an interesting thing, like naming conventions right here. Very important if this is where you're starting your process to understand which deal you want to start with.
We also don't expect most people to actually start from here. Like we have to have this button here, but we actually expect most people to start from a deal or a quote. Excuse me, for a deal or a company, right, or a contact, right? Like, so just saying that out loud, right? Like if you're like, man, this is a long list of deals, we're like, we know you should just go to the deal record and press add quote. That's a lot easier.
Yeah. So I was actually about to ask that question. So just to confirm, you're still able to just navigate to a deal.
Yeah, you can do that.
Very good.
Oh yeah. I mean, this again, we're trying to speak to the daily life of HubSpot, where there's probably 10 different places you could start a quote.
Oh yeah,
from.
there are, and all of them have different.
Which makes me curious about, like, because we can create quotes related to companies and contacts directly now, too, right?
You do. You still need a deal. That's kind of like a fundamental of the system, is that quotes need to have associated deals. We thought about breaking that. There's a lot of technical reasons why that's the case. Like the quote inherits a lot of things from the deal. Like for example, who's the owner of the quote? It's the owner of the deal, right? Where the line items come from, right? And it's like, well, like oftentimes we basically think that like a lot of the people who don't want to create quotes from deals often don't, like they don't use deals, and then they're looking to do something different than use a CPQ, right? They're looking for like a dedicated e-sign solution, or they're looking for like a really simple quoting solution that like they're just going to be unhappy with a lot of the general features that we have. But I think it's still something we should consider doing. It's just not super high on my priority list, given a lot of the people who we think are going to be the best users of CPQ are going to use deals.
Yeah, I think the only place that I could see maybe wanting to disconnect it is more if you wanted to automate the quote creation also.
Sure,
so like,
that's fair.
But otherwise, I think most teams, if you're the actual user that's clicking through this thing, probably you're starting from a deal.
Yeah, and even for automation, like we actually don't support creation of quotes by automation yet, but it's something I want to do. But like even then, right, when I talk to people and I say, how would you want that to work? In their heads, they go, well, I take a deal and I convert it into a quote. Right. And it's like that neat, like if you just had create quote in workflows, I would say, well, who's this quote for? Right. And you'd have to like pick some sort of automated way that you select which contact this quote is for. You'd have to find some automated way to find the company that you're right. So the deal does a lot of this work, basically. And that's why we kind of piggyback on it. So anyway.
And it says choose from your quote templates. At this point, we have access to one. When
you can
will
make
we
as
have
many as you
access
want.
to more, Ethan?
You can make as many as you want. We automatically generate one for you, but yeah, like if you want, you could exit out of here and we could go build 50 templates.
Okay, let's hit that up after this first example. Yeah, we're close.
You can close it. That's fine.
All right. So this is the kind of thing that I'm expecting. Like when you start to use new tools inside of HubSpot and you go click on I want to try this new quote tool. There's other settings and there's various other things that maybe you're bringing sales in for the first time. You're saying, hey, sales user, we've been using this for marketing and now we want to get sales team, so come in and check this out. I've never set it up before, but you're the quoting guy, like you're responsible for that. Come in and check it out. And they come in here and there's no like the brand settings haven't been set up, and like there's no like, because this will look a lot better when you have a lot of your company settings set up, when your address is completed, when your logo is in the system. Because that's where we're pulling from a lot of this setup, right, Ethan?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, you can see, for example, like it says value first, and you're like, why does it say value first? And it's just like a word. What is that? And the answer is that's the logo that has been set in this particular portal, right? And you might be like, well, that's you can see where it says override default logo. Well, that's the default logo that you have in this portal. And no offense, I think that logo is not a very nice logo. And I mean, I know it's a test portal, so I'm just making fun of you. But like, I think that's like a good example to your point of like, if you set up your brand settings, things will look better. On the flip side, I think we could probably do an even better example of like, having the default have like lorem ipsum content or something, so you can better visualize. But yeah, we piggyback on all the settings that you already have.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna pull one up here.
And you can also, what was I going to say? Like our kind of thoughts, the way we think about like quoting settings in HubSpot is basically you have like the global level, the portal level, right? You have the template level, and then you have the quote level, right? So it's like I could have a logo for my portal. I could have a logo for each template, right? Because maybe I have 3 different brands, right? Or 3 different, types of templates that have slightly different logos, right? Like HubSpot has inbound and HubSpot, right? Um, and then you have the quote level, right? So you could even have a rep who can adjust the logo on an individual quote. Don't know why you'd want to do that, but you could do it, right? So that's how we think about it. Is like every set of settings should be like that.
Excellent.
Yeah. And this is where, like, if you're used to, let's say that situation where I just described, hey, I'm been using HubSpot for marketing and now I'm getting the sales team in. Like, one of my favorite things about the new quoting like editor is that this sidebar like starts to feel very much like a lot of other tools in HubSpot, to the point where as soon as I saw this option set, like I knew exactly how I was going to solve this problem of not having a logo. And even when, like, just to see how easy this stuff is, like, it's nice when you get to prep this stuff and you know exactly where the logo is going to be used. And, but in this case, like, again, we're trying it out, but these are the kinds of things that I find that get in the way of like new users coming in. They're like, oh, this is awful. This is never going to work. Like, can't use this, when it's just this easy to start to manage what, what your quote looks like. And when we talk about templates, right, and you put this in the hands of the teams that actually need to do the different things, especially when you're talking about different products, like we can actually create like really differentiated experiences depending on what thing we're selling, which team is serving the proposal when. And that's the kind of stuff that makes deals close faster, right? When you're not just generically pushing the same quote proposal out to every customer no matter the situation. Yeah. Right? So this flexibility, I know everybody's gonna fall in love with. Even the ability to go back in the way that I just did, that is exactly how it works on landing pages and website pages, right? So that makes the system easier to adopt, easier to manage, right? So that's why I love, like, coming into systems that are not prepared, because that's what happens. Like, it would be nice if we could all just sign up with Bill and take a couple months to just like figure everything out before we get in there. And then Bill's team, has all this stuff ready,
yeah,
which is where we'll get to. But this is the point where if we want adoption of a thing that's never existed in HubSpot in this capacity, right, we have to help people understand what's available before they even give Bill or HubSpot a call, right? So,
I would also argue, by the way, like I don't think we're doing a super good job of that here, right? Like my team was kind of sprinting to make a lot of these things possible. I think that we need to do a better job of making it like easy for you to visualize, like what is possible here. Because I think a lot of people look at this and they're like, well, this isn't really what I want. I have a 50-page proposal. Would that work, right? And the answer is like totally, right? You can add your own sections. You can blast it out with images and tables and testimonials, and you can do so many things. And they're like, but that's not what I see. I see a blank white box.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, I get that. And I think that's also like on us as the product team to make that a lot easier for you to understand. Because you can see up there that you can insert like, snippets, you can insert personalization tokens, you can do images and blah, and, different text blocks. And like a lot of the capabilities are there, but they're hard to understand. And I think that's just because the product is new, right? And like the first step is making things possible. The next step is making things easy. But anywho, I think we could do a better job here transparently.
Well,
baby steps.
Let's walk the path a little bit further, though, because I'm not 100% sure that, like, at least let's start to show people a little bit of what we can do.
Sure.
So I think the other thing, there is sort of a mental leap here a little bit, which not so much for somebody that uses HubSpot all the time, but maybe for a new person. This is going to need line items in order to be able to unlock a bunch of the AI features and things like that, right? So we got to add some products to our quote. Right.
That's correct. And again, like this deal didn't have line items on it. If it did, those would be in here right now.
Yeah, exactly. So
right.
Hey,
which is
Ethan, I've got a
often,
question about that, actually. This is a little bit
Yeah.
more of a technical question for my own
Sure.
curiosity. If you add them here, do they end up back on the deal?
So it's a good question, because basically the short answer is I want to say right now the answer is yes. We can check. I think that the answer is yes. But like, for example, what if you create multiple quotes? Right. Like, I
Right.
think the logic right now is that like whatever the most recent quote is kind of becomes like the set of line items. And you can turn that off too, of course. But what I really want to get you to be able to do, and this should be available, relatively soon, is I basically want folks to be able to designate like a primary quote, so they could have 3 quotes for the deal. And it's like, this is my primary quote. The primary quote line items dictate the deal line items. But then let's say somebody signs something that isn't the primary quote. They sign the 3rd quote, right? And the 2nd quote was the primary quote. Then what's going to happen is the line items on whatever quote you sign, or could accept it, right? You don't have to use signature, but whatever quote gets accepted, that becomes the deal line items,
Yeah.
right? So I think that's the place we're going to get to.
Right. So it's sort of like one of the quotes is the primary one, and that's also really important because of reporting, right? So you
Right.
need to know which one of these things is actually showing up on my deal, right?
Correct. And again, right now, I'm pretty sure it's just the most recent one, because most people don't create multiple quotes for a deal. Or if they do, it's like different versions. Like, people have asked me, well, how do I do versions? And the answer is just clone the quote and make it again, right? And you can have like version 1, version 2, version 3.
Yeah.
And so, most people don't do that, which is fine. So I think the system works okay, but it could just get a little bit more advanced, and we're going to make it a little bit more.
Very good. No,
and can we just take a minute to enjoy
Yeah.
what's happening here on the screen? Editability, like right from the single pane, in all these different places, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Whereas, like, I'll just say it's better. Like, please appreciate this, folks. So if I'm changing quantities, like, that's gonna be so helpful for a ton of people. Maybe I don't like this description, or I want to personalize it for this specific quote that we're doing. I can just like redo it here.
Yeah, and these are also, it's not just like you're changing how the quote looks. Like, these are actually literally, like Bill was saying, modifying the line item data on the deal, right? So like, if you change, phase 0 administration, budgetary management, e-commerce, and to like, Bill's big basket, then if you go look on the deal, it's going to say Bill's big basket. You can also modify these using AI too, right? Like, you can tell Breeze, like, change all the descriptions to be like this, add a discount across the board, only add a discount to phase 0 administration, budgetary stuff, right? So that's where I was talking to you guys about that kind of like new wave of, AI editing stuff. And then to your point, as you're showing, Chris, you can also just pop into the like old style editor and edit here as well. And shoot, what was one thing I wanted to add here?
We're auto saving up here.
Yeah, we're auto saving.
When exactly
Yep,
is the autosave happening? Like, when I click out?
It's anytime you make a change. So like, if you delete description, or like just delete the N in the word description, it'll like wait for a second, pull, and then it'll auto save. So it says like save, and it should auto save. Yeah, there you go. So, because we don't want to auto save every like second, right? Because then if you're like making a lot of changes, it'll just like constantly disrupt you. But what was that? Oh, another thing I just wanted to tell you guys that like we don't support yet, but it's something I want to do, and it really pays off that value of HubSpot. Is that, again, we don't support this yet, but I actually want to support personalization tokens in the line items, right? So you could imagine a world, right, where Bill is like, here's the phase 0 administration, budgetary. Man, we got to pick a different one. That's an easier name to say. Recontextualize systemic moderator CRM, right? He might want to have like a deal property, or a contact property, or company property, or a quote property, right? Like something that is like in like specific to this line item in this context, and it renders that actually in the description.
Yes.
Yeah. So again, we don't support that yet, but the reason I bring it up is it's like a really good example of why having all these things in one place starts to generate kind of like high leverage, right? Because it's like, oh, well, if I'm storing a bunch of information about my, prospects in my CRM, I can now reference that prospect information with, for example, unique descriptors for each line item that I don't have to manually generate, right? Same thing with AI, right? It's like you could have AI start to write descriptions that's like pulling in some of these personalization tokens, right? So like it's the same line item, right? When it goes into your accounting system, everybody knows what it is. But like on the individual quote, it looks a little bit different to each person, contextualized for their use case.
Yeah, well, and if we go back to the line items real quick too, well, Chris, go ahead and finish what you're doing. I also see a little AI button in there as well. Should we click that and see if we can do a little bit with line item selection with the AI?
Yep,
Sure.
I really want to click on those buttons too. That's why I'm giving the AI a little bit more context here, so it can actually maybe give me some more relevant answers. I'm assuming this part is important. So whenever I click that button, yes, Ethan?
Oh, I think Bill's talking about line item editing. Like if you hit the line items box and then like you just click it in the top right, there's the little AI button. That's going to swing out Breeze, but it's also going to tell Breeze, hey, by the way, we're talking about the line item section, which is important because then if you ask it to do something, it knows to do that in the context of the line item section. You don't have to do that. It should be smart enough to figure that out. But like you could say, you can see that we've given you, a bunch of kind of, out of the box things like add a line item description, update the line item discount, right? We've given you these out of the box things. You can also just type whatever you want, right? But,
The one that I'm really excited about here, and I don't know if we've got enough quite set up to do it, but I think in a normal sales context, you would without much setup, is somebody sends you an email about what they want.
Yeah.
And you could dump it into Breeze and it'll add the line item, right?
Right. Which is why this part is important, right? Like if you don't have this stuff associated, it's not going to see the past emails or the past call transcripts. Because that's what I want to do is if I'm clicking this button to get help from Breeze, it means I don't know, like, because otherwise I'm just clicking in. It's so easy to just say 5, update the price. But if I need help with contextual changes, right, based on the last call, based on the last email, especially when you start taking it to the company level of what else has this company been doing in our CRM? Has anybody else bought this thing before? Are we doing the same price as when they bought it, in that other place? That level of context I'm super excited about, because that's what often will trip up people as they're trying to create personal experiences, right? And while trying to control some sort of consistency in our process.
Yeah. The other one is more when it says ask me anything, say, does this quote seem complete?
Oh yeah, like that's something we actually don't do super well yet, but that's something I'm really fired up to do. Because I think if you say like, does this quote seem complete? Like, well, what does that even mean, right? That's the equivalent of asking somebody outside of your company to audit a quote, and they would be like, well, I don't know.
Yes.
Right.
That's the context that I'm so excited for, is to almost build like a statistical, basically it's like an AI driven, am I getting my configurations right?
Yep. Yeah.
Right.
And I think that like that's actually why I mean, I'm not sure if you guys have like heard that concept of like leapfrogging in technology, right? Like there's many countries in Africa that like did like banking leapfrogging, right? Like they went straight from like cash economies to like 100% digital payment economies, or largely digital payment economies, and they kind of skipped the like checks and cards thing. Like I think we're in the position of, because all this stuff is being built AI native, which again is not because we're like some fancy super smart company. It's because we're starting now, and so it's much easier for us to build it AI native than there's other people. I'm really excited for that level of insights, and like Bill, you can imagine that like as you start building out approvals or as you start building out rules or whatever, right? Like the AI is tying into that, and I'm excited about it because like in the very beginning, Chris was talking about how CPQs are often like a very human business, right? Where it's like, well, we all have this tribal knowledge. Like Bill just knows to ask Chris about blank. Like that's actually stuff that AI is pretty good at, right? AI is really good at like analyzing text coming in and looking at text that's out there, right? And so like things like a deal coach or things like that feel like they're not actually stretched use cases of AI, right? They're like things that AI probably should be pretty good at. And then, I mean, you were talking about like somebody emailing you and saying, hey, can I, update the quantity or whatever? But going back to like helping folks close deals faster, I also want, you to, I mean, you have control over this as a company, but like you can imagine somebody like chatting with a closing agent and being like, hey, sorry, like Bill just, misheard me. I said I wanted 26 licenses instead of 25, right? Quote gets updated, right? Or maybe they can even just go in and edit the quote, no AI involved, right? And so all of those are good examples of like those sorts of features that I mentioned that I want to build to accelerate the closing process. Like, and we want to do that within the security, right? Like we don't want them to just say like, can you reduce the price by 20%, right? It's like, no, of course not. But like, if somebody wants to remove a line item or add a line item or modify a line item because, and then they can just move on and get the quote signed and get out of here. Like, great, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And like, just again, like if we can just take a moment to drink this in, imagine I have been working with Bill to develop what the quote was going to be. And then Bill told his buddy Ethan, and Ethan's like, I want one of those. And I just asked, can you double them? And imagine if that was in a call and the call said, yes, can you just double all the line items on this quote?
Yeah. Or even like,
then,
imagine if you were in the CRM,
right.
and you just said, hey, can I just have a quote that's kind of like what I did for Bill, but it's for this company, right? And it's like, dang,
that's
right?
what
Like these are, yeah,
right.
That's where it starts to get pretty interesting. And again, like, we're still very early innings here, right? Like this is like, we're not doing all this stuff, great yet,
right.
but like we actually have a dedicated AI team inside of my group. And this is the stuff that they think about. And like, there's so many possibilities for them. It's really just a question of prioritization and where do they experiment. So if folks have ideas, like, let us know, right? Because again, we have a whole team that's job is to do these experiments. And they really are experiments because oftentimes we have to figure out, can the AI actually do that in a reliable way, even if it's a good idea, right? And the answer might, like, we actually, little peek behind the curtain for you guys. We tried really hard to figure out if we could reliably from call data detect like what line items somebody's been talking about to generate a quote. And the answer is like, yes, we can, assuming we have really good data. And a lot of the times people don't really have enough data for us to do that reliably. And so, there's other things that we can do and we're going to work on it and we're going to, keep pushing in that direction. But like, that's why a lot of these are experiments, because it's not just, is it theoretically possible? Is it theoretically possible? And is it realistic for our users? And again, that's like the HubSpot value or the HubSpot kind of philosophy, right? Which is like, I don't want to just tell you that like, if you were better, this feature would work better. I want to tell you this feature will work for you reliably. And it doesn't really matter, who you are.
Yeah.
That's it's funny because as a founder-led salesperson, I'm doing a whole lot of what you're describing right now with AI. But I mean, I can look at it a little bit more critically because like, I can sort of make those determinations and sort of catch little things. But, I think like you're saying, it's really about having the context. So uploading a bunch of old versions of the thing into the tool, things like that are going to be kind of the, can you upload a rate card? Can you upload, like if let's say you're selling services, can you upload a rate card with a bunch of different resources on it? This is who you want to be, from the conversation, who would be the right person to pick, like that kind of stuff. And like you said, AI is really good at that. We just need to get there. So cool. So as we're unboxing it right now, though, the idea for line item AI is more about, can you adjust quantities? Can you adjust can you personalize this based, like, let's say we've got an email that came in. We know what line items we want to put on the quote. Could we do something in the chat where we say, for example, these are the line items that I want added, and here's the personalization that I want to have based on this email?
I don't know. Transparently, we should.
I'm going to ask for a recommendation from Breeze for like an upsell, but to reiterate, just I asked for doubling. It edited in line of the quote on my behalf, right? And we're okay with testing that early because there's this undo button that if we click undo, now it goes back, right?
Yeah. Also, actually, Chris, one other thing I want to say about this that like I just haven't thought about a lot is like you were using, or no, I haven't thought about it a lot. A lot of people don't think about it, and I didn't think about it initially, and I'm like really excited about this. Breeze also knows who you are and what you have permission to do, which might be different than the things that Bill has permission to do, right? So like one of the cool things about Breeze is that like it respects permissions. So like in a world, right, where let's say like, Bill was the head of sales and Chris is like a new salesperson and he can only, discount up to certain levels, right? Let's leave approvals out of it. That's a different way of solving the problem. But like, or let's say Bill had the ability to, change prices, but you don't, right? If you ask Breeze to change a price, it would say, no, I'm not going to do that because you don't have permission to do that. Which is pretty cool.
Yeah. And that, like, I cannot overstate like how this enables at a level that I've never really seen before, right? Because when you're trying to get the part where this all breaks usually is whatever system's been created, the person that's used it for 6 months, 1 month, or 1 year, like many years, like you understand the nuances of the system and you can work through it very, very fast. But when somebody new comes in, they don't understand any of those nuances. They're giving bad pricing left and right. You have some new initiative that the the veteran salesperson will know exactly how to upsell and when to upsell it. And now, like I just asked Breeze, can you recommend any other products that would be helpful for this customer based on the other line items, right? And it's pulling from the product library to find those, right? And I'm going to say like, yes, add them all just to see what happens here. And that kind of enablement, right? Like it takes so much, such a complex build. We do try to, people have successfully done these things with CPQ where you build in the rules and bundles and optionality, and like through guided selling, you try to create situations where you don't have to know every single thing about every single product option to be able to enable this. Looks like we can't do something like this yet. Maybe in this situation, just understand if you try to talk to Breeze to help with this stuff, there's a learning curve for Breeze and a learning curve for you as the user. And as everybody uses this more effectively, more often, like the learning curve will win out, right? So now that we've got some context here, like I'm gonna click in here and get some help from Breeze here, which this was one of the first things I ever did with this new tool set. And I couldn't believe how accurate it was based on the company that I was in. Like the only thing I could have imagined is that the company had contacts from these QuickBooks invoices that had been just attached as PDFs in the system, right? Or maybe they were in emails somewhere. There was definitely nothing set up. And the way it nailed like the terms for the first time was just so good, right? And these are the things that if I'm in sales and I know I need to tweak this, like I want to use my standard, but I know it needs some, that's the kind of thing like I got to send to somebody else to review, or I naturally put it off.
I
Right?
also think that like, I mean, again, I'm really glad that we're showing that AI can do this, but I also don't think this is like a normal, like, I don't want to poo-poo the use case, but like, for example, we shouldn't have sales reps generating one-off legal terms for every quote, right?
Good
So
job.
I do
Yes.
think that like, again, it's cool that like Breeze can do this on a quote, Breeze can do this on a template, but I do think it's like worth calling out to everybody, right? That like, this is an individual quote, but really what we expect you to do is build out a template, and that template has your default language, and that template has, you're talking about attachments, Chris, like that template maybe has an attached MSA, right? Like I'm like, yeah, it like Breeze can do a lot of this stuff, but I just don't want you or other people to think like what you should be doing is every time generating your legal language. And it's like, absolutely not. Most, like the vast majority of folks are going to be having standardized legal language on every one of their, quotes or proposals. And that's going to be like generated by the legal team, maybe via AI, probably not. And then like paste it onto that template, and it's going to show up by default every time their sales reps create a quote. So I do just want to call that out. Like I think it's important.
I mean, yes, we would love for everybody to use templates. They don't. So it's, even if this is how you get to the template for the first time, know that this is available to you.
Yeah. I think what Ethan's saying though is that we do still want to have some guardrails, and so a properly configured system will result in things that you can change, things that you can't change, where you should be using AI, where you shouldn't. Like those are determinations that are going to need to be made at the level of it's really the admin with a strategic team working alongside. So like an executive summary, if it were
Sure.
my company, I would say I almost always want this to be somewhat AI generated, right? Like, don't spend time writing this, right? Whereas my terms and conditions, like if I've got a warranty that I need to have in things, don't touch it, right? So it's more about setting up this tool so that it can handle both of those use cases properly. Is going to be super important, but it's exciting that it can do it. But we just need to make sure that it's so easy to add a template that you always start from a template, right? And Ethan, another product question that I have for you here is, we can lock down some of these, right?
Like right now, no, but that's just because it's a feature that we were still building going into inbound. One of the top priorities for the team that owns the building experience and the template experience is that when you create a quote, when you create a template, you'll be able to say, like, for example, of course you can edit the executive summary. The term section is locked. You cannot modify it.
Yeah.
You can't change the language. You can't remove the attachment. You can't, and you'll be able to do that for every section, right? Like you could lock down the executive summary. You could lock down the acceptance section, right? Like you could even say, like, we use e-signature as a company, right? You lock it down and it's like every quote has e-signature, sorry, right?
Super soon. This is coming.
Yeah, no, I don't like that's I can't give you like an exact timeline. That's not how HubSpot works, but it's like very high up on the roadmap for that team. I would be very surprised if it took us a long time to build that one.
Yeah, because I would say that one's something I'm most excited about. It's like
I know. There's also just like so many there's so many things. But yes, it's high up on the roadmap.
You're starting to learn about me as just one more person, aren't you? So
well, I mean, that's how everybody is. And by the way, like, I don't think that's an unrealistic, like, this is why Chris mentioned it's still in beta. Like, we wanted to leave the beta designation there so folks know that, like, there are still some gaps that we need to fill even before we're comfortable calling it fully GA. That's one of those gaps. That's one of those gaps.
Cool. Very cool. So here's our quote. Chris, go back to that. The actual quote. I wanted to see that. I think
you go to the actions menu, Chris, in the top right, you can say view publish quote and it'll take you straight there. And it'll also open up a new tab. There you
go. Check it out.
Yeah, we tried to have the editor look very similar to the actual quote. Because what we found is, like, folks are always like, where's the preview button? And I think we're gonna make it easier to preview the quote, but we want you to start kind of trusting that, like, if you see it on the screen, it'll look that way. You don't need to, re-review it or download it every time and review it. So that's why we kind of built the editor the way we did.
And Ethan, really quick. So we saw Chris just generate an executive summary with AI, which is one of the most requested features that I get working on other CPQ systems.
Oh, really? That's so interesting.
Yeah. That shows up all the time. It's exec summary, it's cover letter. What I want to kind of poke here, though, is what about other things that we could generate with AI? So are we just doing cover letters and executive summaries right now? Or
you can generate whatever you want. Like, you could have, like, Chris could have, again, I would recommend at the template level more than at the quote level, but you could drag in 50 different sections, right? Like areas of opportunity, reasons we're different, testimonials, right? Yeah. Like, you can do whatever you want. And, AI might be better or worse at generating some of these sections. So that's where I was trying to say, you have to make a decision of, like, is this a section we should be generating with AI or not, right? Yeah. Like customer testimonials, I wouldn't generate that by AI. I would go get some customer testimonials, list them by default, right? And, but something like a cover letter or executive summary, yeah, definitely perfect, right? Because we're going to look at the context of the deal and the notes and the emails, and we're going to generate an executive summary based on that. Yeah, absolutely. So it really puts you in the driver's seat of what you want to do.
And, oh man, we're at time. Can we do another one of these tomorrow? Maybe not tomorrow.
I'll do these with you guys whenever you want. One thing I did want to call out, though, is we didn't talk about some of the features, like we didn't show off templates as much, but another thing I just want to make sure you guys know is like approvals. Because I think that's a big one, right? Is like, we were generating this quote and we were adding some discounts, but we actually have a whole approval system where admins can go in and be like, hey, Chris can do whatever he wants, but for Bill, right, we gotta, like, not even for individual people, right? It's like, for certain sorts of reps, they can do this. For certain sorts of reps, they must do that. Every rep can't do this. People in North America can do that. So we actually have a whole system of allowing you to build that out using the workflows interface. And then we'll actually expose those, rule violations to the sales rep when they're building the quote, so they can see, oh, I see, this is going to have to be, approved by Bill because it has a quote of, or one of the line items has a discount of greater than 20%. I'm going to knock that down to 19 and just ship this quote because I don't want to have to deal with Bill.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. I hope they don't.
Yeah, no, I know that I knew this was going to be the first of a number of sessions, and I appreciate Ethan's offer for coming back whenever. CPQ, again, like even though it's easier than ever in HubSpot, it's still one of the most complex parts of HubSpot. Like, so as easy as it sounds like it's happening out there, like that's why I approach it this way. If you haven't touched this area of HubSpot before, there's things outside of quotes, that get set up, like using snippets and things like that to manage terms and conditions, like all these saved areas, right? It's super easy. It becomes easiest when you really use the rest of HubSpot. As we talked about, like creating the context needed and creating the tools needed so that salesperson isn't having to do that every time. Because we know that salespeople do things like that every time, where the quote is from scratch every time. They're not even using the product library. They just add custom line items every time. And yeah, the system can do that for you. But when you start to use the product library and snippets and templates, and now Breeze Assistant to do a lot of these things, that's what gets you to the quote faster. I'll never forget, and we'll end on this. When I had left the company that I was at for a while, and we were trying to implement CPQ, and it was trying to update a process that was built on this like 80-page Word doc that the sales team would have to send all the information to the quoting team, and then they would just go through the Word doc and delete pages to get it to be the right way. And after a year away from that company, I talked to the salesperson, the head of sales, and the first complaint right out the gate was, yeah, Chris, it still takes 4 weeks to get a quote back. And it's not okay, right? Like we can't allow for that if we say that we want to grow revenue, right? Like that is something that it's never been more affordable and more easy to solve for that problem, especially when you're already using HubSpot. So I want to thank Ethan and Bill today for helping us, really start this journey, which is the start for a lot of people that are, interested in taking advantage of quoting tools inside of HubSpot. And, I look forward to seeing what else we get into next time, and teams continuing to develop. So I'm sure there'll be something new to show off just about every time. Thanks so much, Ethan and Bill. We'll see you next time.
Talk to you guys later.